They say Black people don't work together. Well, we are a Black-owned investment company. 99% of our investors come from the African-American diaspora. And over the past 3 years, we have become one of the fastest growing and most impactful investment syndication companies you're going to find this side of the Americas. We have raised over $10 million in investor capital. As Dennis mentioned, our assets in 3 years have appreciated north of $12 million of equity. We've distributed over $500,000 of cash to our investors, and we are growing exponentially week by week, month by month. So for anybody out there that says, Black folks, brown folks don't work together, the proof is in the pudding. All you have to do is look at what we're doing, and we put that notion to rest.
You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Hey there, Monique here. And before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to share a bit of my journey with you. As a first-generation entrepreneur, I know what it's like to start from scratch. I didn't have a lineage of past business owners or a community of mentors to guide me through the process. That's why I created Black to Business and the Black to Business Podcast, to provide resources and support for fellow Black entrepreneurs like you. And guess what? I'm not alone in this mission. Harvard Business School Executive Education shares our commitment to developing leaders making a difference in the world. Their renowned faculty members are skilled educators blending real-world experience with a variety of teaching approaches to create an exceptional learning environment. Visit hbs.me/explore to discover the possibilities that HBS has to offer. Are you ready to take your leadership to the next level? Visit hbs.me/explore today. Dennis and Mikael, welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. I am so happy to have you both here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about all the great work that you all are doing over at the Haltere Group. And also we're going to dive into the conversation on all about collective wealth and harnessing the power of group economics in real estate, because you all are killing it. But before we dive into the conversation, I want to get my audience familiar with who we're speaking to. So if you could both just share a little bit about your story. I know we're going to dive into it a little as we get in the conversation, but about your story, who you are, and kind of how you got where you are today. Either of you can start.
Absolutely. So Dennis, Earls, thank you for having us as a company.
You're
we
welcome.
are excited. I am the CEO and chairman of the Haltere Group. My background is 27 years in commercial real estate, where I have a specialty in multifamily apartment buildings. To date, I have brokered over 300 transactions, north of $3 billion in real estate. So I pride myself on being an expert. And where I am today is, my passion is it's just getting out the knowledge, getting out the education to those who, unfortunately, are not privy to growing wealth, not privy to the creative transactions, and or just don't have the liquidity to get into the space to really start forming generational wealth. So I have a passion. My partners have a passion. And my partner on this call, Mikael Pyles, is one of our superstars within the ranks of Haltere, and I'll be glad for him to introduce himself.
Yes, thank you for that intro.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Hello, everyone. Monique, thank you for having us. My name is Mikael Pyles. I am the vice president of the Haltere Group. I am originally from sunny Southern California, although I've lived all over the United States. And in my 35 years, I feel like I've lived 3 lives with all of my travels. One of which being the 4 years I spent in Atlanta, Georgia, where I matriculated and graduated from Clark Atlanta University. So I'm a proud HBCU alum.
Yes.
Shout out to the Panthers out there. Listen, Monique, when I think about my story, it's really been one that's been marked by a passion for uplifting and empowering my community in all that I do. I got my degree in business. I started off in the corporate world, working for some of the top Fortune 50 companies in the country, quickly realizing that, that sort of corporate activity was really great. However, when it comes to truly building generational wealth, which is what I'm all about, there's often a glass ceiling that occurs in the corporate world. So I decided after a few years, working and being a top producer for some corporate companies, to really cut my teeth in an entrepreneurial fashion. That's when I started some businesses, and I got into real estate. And then while I was in real estate, Monique, I realized very quickly that Black and brown communities were often marginalized and underrepresented in multiple aspects of real estate. Our communities were overlooked. When you think about real estate investors and those with high net worth portfolios, many times Black and brown individuals take up the small minority of those lists. I really made it my mission to dedicate my career to facilitating wealth and ownership for my community. And that's something that I share with my partners at the Haltere Group.
I love it. Such a banging intro. So much amazing work. I am so excited for this conversation and all of the work that you are doing. So, Mikael, you actually spoke about Clark. So all of you are HBCU grads. Is that correct?
Not all of us.
No. Okay, I'll take that
out. so a few of us.
Okay.
Myself, my partner Marcide Hatcher, who is the chief of real estate development for Haltere Group. He actually went to Southern University, and then we have the president and chief operating officer Anthony Tabor for Haltere Group, one of the founding principals. He attended and graduated from Tennessee State University. And, and so we have some other folks, our content marketing specialist, Shayna Taylor. She also graduated from Clark Atlanta. But then you have our chairman and CEO, Dennis, who probably wants to represent, the Trojan Nation on the line.
Hey, look, I'm the oddball here. I'm the one who went to the PWI, and all of my colleagues went to the HBCU. But, I will say, Monique, my wife is also a fellow Panther. She graduated from Clark Atlanta as well. So although I went to a PWI, we still have an HBCU spirit at heart.
We'll take it. I love it. And so tell me about how you all got started with the Haltere Group.
It was shortly after COVID. All of the partners who are experts in their trade, as Mikael mentioned, Marcide is a executive at EY, 20 plus years in development across Asia and Europe. Our partner, Ennis Williams, who's a financial advisor, Anthony Tabor, who's a mortgage banker. We all had that aha moment, right? The world stopped. Everyone was, either scared, freaked out, or unsure. And you have that moment where you look yourself in the mirror and you're like, okay, what's next? And for us collectively, we've made so many other ethnicities wealthy, not rich, but wealthy with our brains, that we decided to come together as a collective and put our power and our knowledge to teach those who look like us on how to become rich and or wealthy as well. So the Haltere Group was founded via COVID. It was founded on the principles of education, and it was founded on the principles of putting our brains together and doing some serious work within our community. Let's not talk about it. Let's be about it.
I love that. And such a great point that you made there, Dennis, because such a good example of the fact that you all are doing exactly what we're going to talk about today. And that's really about, for those who are listening, breaking it down and really understanding the power of group economics, especially in real estate. One of the things you mentioned earlier is the fact that so many people feel as if they have to have all of this cash or it's not possible for them. So we're going to talk about how we can do it together. So you kind of touched on this earlier, but I want to dive into it a little bit more and make it plain. So for you, both of you, maybe what specific challenges or disparities within the real estate industry prompted you all to start the Haltere Group and really focus on collective wealth creation?
Yeah, I can jump in here, Monique. That's a wonderful question. For me, it's about access, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually started off my career in residential real estate, and
Mm-hmm.
I had the great fortune to be immersed in a very dog eat dog environment, if you will, which is a great place, to cut your teeth, which was New York City, New York.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I got my start, and really learning the real estate game. I realized it can be extremely volatile. It can chew you up and spit you out. But once
Mm-hmm.
you figure it out, it's a conduit to extreme financial well-being and wealth. The disparity, however, that I realized in my time in residential real estate was that most of my clients, I'd say 99% of my clients that, helped me obviously create a wonderful living for myself and my family, they didn't look like me. And I had to truly assess why that was. Why was only 1%, probably less than 1% of my clientele base uh,
Mm-hmm.
African American, right? And I realized, there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of historic and systemic drivers of that. But in today's day and age, where we have so much access to education, there's so much more of a global mindset to various industries where you don't have to be confined to where you live. You can learn and grow and develop in other aspects. I realized that purely there was an antiquated barrier that existed, Monique, in the real estate world, especially when it came to high value real estate, that was just all predicated on access. And so when I got with the Haltere Group and realized that Dennis, Anthony, Marcide, and Ennis were of the same mindset, that they wanted to break these barriers. They wanted to facilitate and streamline the access that other groups have to the Black and Brown community. I was all in. And that's what we've been able to do. We've been able to essentially take this advanced, complex, notion of buying commercial multifamily real estate, something that just seems unattainable for a lot of us. And we've been able to synthesize that information, break it down, and simplify it to where we're able to educate and provide and extend an olive branch to the community in ways that we've never had before.
And, I'll jump in there also, Monique. Magic Johnson said it best, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but he recently said that, the Black community has excelled and dominated fashion, entertainment, and athletics, but we are so far behind in the financial markets and financial literacy. And that's because historically, we don't pool our dollars. We don't put our dollars together as a collective, and we don't use the power of those dollars to impact our pocketbook. So the Haltere Group allows it's a vehicle which allows for those individuals to put in a smaller amount of money as a collective, and then we take those dollars and we deploy them into a large apartment building across the country. For those who are unfamiliar, in the commercial space, the lender, the bank, typically requires that borrower to put down as a down payment 25%. So if we go on simple mathematics, if you buy a property for $1 million and the lender requires 25%, well, $250,000 plus your closing costs, let's call it $300,000, is what's required to buy that property. Most, I don't care if you're Black, brown, green, or purple, most are not sitting on $300,000 of liquidity. So what we have done is we've provided the education to over 135 investors who look like us, and they've been wildly successful by putting their dollars into the space and getting a positive return on their investment on a quarterly and annual basis.
I love that. And so for somebody who is just getting started and they're saying, okay, I hear what you're saying, Dennis, and I want to see evidence, or what are some success stories of those who have done this when it comes to group economics in real estate? So could you define particularly the context of this and what that looks like for somebody who's listening and say, okay, this is what success in this has looked like, and this is why it works?
Of course. So our minimum investment, so to participate in any of our projects, the minimum is $10,000. And that's a big thing because typically when you enter into an investment space, most investment companies require your minimum at $50,000 or $100,000. Our minimum is $10,000. Our annual historic rate of return is 6 to 7% annually. And that's just based on cash returns. So if we put that into perspective, if you are an individual who has $10,000 and your money is sitting at an FDIC bank, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, you're only accruing on an annual basis less than 1%. We are allowing you to put your $10,000 into the space and accrue 6 to 7% on an annual basis. Now, there are other financial metrics. You know, you might be sitting in a bond or a CD, or your money might be sitting in the market. So there are other vehicles, but I'm really speaking purely on the comparison between money sitting in a bank and money being invested. So one of the successes is a 6 to 7% return annually. A secondary success is for those investors who participate, they're not only winning on the cash on cash return, but we also allow for the investors to win on their annual tax write-off. So the IRS allows for investors to depreciate a real estate by 27.5 years. We are allowing and we are distributing these depreciation dollars to our investors annually. So not only are you as a $10,000 investor, as the example, earning 6 to 7% annual on your cash flow, you also are participating in your annual tax write-off, which obviously allows for your CPA or your accountant to write off your personal income. And then third, which is the biggest bang on your buck, is the equity. Across all Haltere platforms to date, we have $10 to $12 million in equity, which also allows for that $10,000 investor to participate. So in closing, the success is that investor, if they're participating in one of our funds, is getting paid on the cash flow, they're getting paid on their tax write-off via the K1, and they're also winning on their equity.
I got to get the drop mic sound effect for that part, okay? Because you just really broke it down, Dennis, and made it plain. We're starting off with fire. So I love that, because one of the things you all spoke about earlier in your mission also is really education. And I think a lot of people, of course, don't do things because they're not educated on it. So for you all, envisioning what you all are doing and leveraging your platform to educate individuals, what do you see the benefits of really putting education at the forefront of all of this so that people can invest in high value real estate ownership?
Hey, I'd love to jump in here. You know, when you ask what are the benefits of leveraging education, I can tell you the benefit, if I was to put it succinctly, is significant and absolute global impactful change in the community, right?
Yeah.
Education, we're in real estate. So I think an apropos analogy when you talk about the impact that education has on moving the culture forward would be to liken education to the foundation of a house, right? You cannot build a formidable house. You cannot build a formidable building on a rocky foundation. You know, I don't care what sorts of Italian marble or high-end fixtures or, you know, wonderful decor you have. If that foundation is not solid, Monique, that house isn't going to last. It's going to crumble, right? And so taking it back to the mission of Haltere Group, we believe that education, far and beyond anything else, is the foundation to success, not just of our company, but of the impact that we endeavor to make in our community at large. And I'd like to point out that we're putting our money where our mouth is, as they say. For your listeners out there, if you go on YouTube, if you go on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, you can find the How with Haltere podcast, right? And the How, our podcast, the How is an acronym, Monique, that stands for helping others win. Every single week, oh yeah, we're changing the game, because every single week we are producing episodes that speak to a diverse array of guests. We have women, powerful female leaders that are entrepreneurs and restaurateurs. We have professional athletes from various sports. We have regular individuals. We have financiers and attorneys and accountants. The list goes on. And the reason that we developed this platform and this podcast, Monique, is so that we could educate the masses in a way that resonates with them. I don't care if you are a creative person, a business-oriented person, a single mother, a teacher, a beginner investor, a seasoned investor. Haltere wants to meet you where you're at and provide you with an education that's going to take your life and the life of your family to the next level.
So powerful. So powerful. I love it. And I love all the work that you are doing. And I also want to talk about now when it comes to getting others involved. So what ways does Haltere Group aim to actively involve investors in acquiring assets and investment opportunities that is really aligning with your mission to create generational wealth?
Yes, we're all about it. This is actually, this goes right into what we were just talking about. So after the educational piece, right, it's the implementation. So you start off with education, but it's just like the old adage goes. Folks like to say knowledge is power. But what we've learned over the years is that's not true. Applied knowledge is power, right? It's one thing to learn or know something, but it's another thing to act on that. And so Haltere, we're not just specialists in educating the community, but we are experts in mobilizing the community. So when you talk about getting our investors involved, we walk with our investors hand in hand, no matter what level they're at, whether they're a $10,000 investor or $1 million investor. And, we've been fortunate to run the gamut. We are able to truly assist and interface with our investors in a way that they feel confident, comfortable, and proud in the investment that they're taking. And I'll give you another step on how Haltere is really working to integrate our investors in what we do. We're all about transparency. Dennis likes to, we're in the investment space, Monique. So, we're out here, really hitting the pavement far and wide, espousing the virtues of investing in real estate. And by doing that, we have investors from all walks of life that are giving their hard-earned money to Haltere's funds, right? And Dennis has a funny saying. He likes to say, listen, he's only so tall and he don't even weigh 200 pounds. He cannot do jail time, right? So because of that, we pride ourselves on transparency.
Yes.
So there's two things that we've recently done. We have currently it's Black History Month, and as a Black-owned investment company, it's important for us to lean into this month that just highlights, the excellence that has emanated from our culture over the years. And so one thing we've done recently, Monique, is we've gathered a collection of actual Haltere investors. We've gifted them with a special keepsake for their trust in us and for their belief in what we've been doing. We've sent video crew to these people to essentially have these investors give testimonials and firsthand accounts of their investment experience with Haltere Group. We're currently packaging that material, and we're going to be sending that out over our social media outlets and YouTube throughout Black History Month, so that people can see. Don't just take it from us,
Right.
Don't just take it from the heads. When you get these talking heads all the time, Monique, and what you say, it sounds good, but for us in our community, you got to show your work, right? And so we're allowing our actual investors to speak out and talk about their experience, and we think that's extremely impactful.
I love it, and I'm excited to see it as well. That is so amazing. And I think that all of the things that you all are doing is a testament to exactly what we're going to talk about next, is really dispelling those myths in real estate investment. So for you all, of course, your focus is, as you mentioned, on the Black and Brown community. And there's this notion and misconception that Black people can't do business together, especially when it comes to real estate. So what strategies have you all employed to overcome this misconception?
Great question. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, imposters in the space who are doing bad business, which is adding to the angst that those in the community has and have regarding investment. So, as Mikael stated earlier, I do say a joke, and my joke is, for those who know me, I stand about 5'11", I'm 175 pounds, and I cannot do jail time because it won't happen, right? So, we say that as a joke, but we really mean that. And we mean that within our business practice. We stay in our lane. First and foremost, we provide transparency across all levels of the transaction. Our investors, their legal team, their financial team, anyone who they might know who understands real estate, they have access to all of our documents. So when we're going through our due diligence stage, regardless if we're in day 1 or day 300, we allow the information to be readily available for those who want to go through it. We allow for the attorneys to ask our attorneys questions. We allow for the CPAs to ask our CPA questions. We allow for the investors to shake the tree and see what falls out, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's important because, if you don't understand what you're doing, that's where the imposters are able to really, get into the space and take you for a joyride. And typically that joyride benefits them and not those who cut the check. The hardest thing that an investor has to do is cut the check. The easiest thing for the investor to do is listen to the knowledge, absorb the knowledge, share the knowledge. And when he or she feels comfortable, then you do the hard thing and you cut the check. And that's where I think Haltere really thrives. It's because we are who we are. We know what we do. We're very transparent. We're very intentional, and we want for those to seek the information and see the information that we're providing. So it keeps me at 5'11", 175 pounds out of jail.
Right.
and Monique, I just wanted to tie a bow on what Dennis just said, because you talked about how Haltere is dispelling some of those stereotypes that black people don't work together and all that. My grandmother used to say the proof is in the pudding, right? And all you have to do is look at our track record, right? I mean, they say black people don't work together. Well, we are a black-owned investment company. 99% of our investors come from the African American diaspora. And over the past 3 years, we have become one of the fastest growing and most impactful investment syndication companies you're going to find this side of the Americas. We have raised over $10 million in investor capital. As Dennis mentioned, our assets in 3 years have appreciated north of $12 million of equity. We've distributed over $500,000 of cash to our investors, and we are growing exponentially week by week, month by month. So for anybody out there that says, black folks, brown folks don't work together, the proof is in the pudding. All you have to do is look at what we're doing, and we put that notion to rest.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, we're intentional on who we work with and who our partners are. We're aligned with Kappa Alpha Psi. We're aligned with Alpha Phi Alpha and other ORs within the Divine Nine. We've donated scholarships to these organizations. We're seeking out, or we're working with NARAB and other entities and organizations across the U.S. We are very intentional, and we have learned that those who do good business attract others who are doing good business. And that's the lane that we stay in.
Yes. Listen, y'all are we know you all do, well, in general, this is myth, because even just this conversation, how y'all are tag teaming this conversation, and Mikael said, let me just tie a bow on it. Y'all work well together. We can tell. And I love that the proof is there. And I think it's important to show that proof because it also lets people know that this is what's working and this is possible, especially if you want to do the same. And a prime example of that is the work that you all are doing. So going into some more examples, I really want to talk about for those people who are initially thought that they lack the capital to invest in real estate. Do you have any examples or some stories of those who you all have been able to successfully engage, who originally thought that they didn't have what it took?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without putting anyone's, specific name or personal information out there, I can definitely speak to a couple situations. One of the things, and this goes back to education, one of the things that we're successful at are allowing people or educating people on the various ways that they're able to leverage the capital or the holdings that they do have, right? So what I mean by that is, and I think Dennis had alluded to this earlier, there are investors that have come to us and said, hey, I have this amount of money in my 401k, and I was told that, I should never touch it, or I can't touch it. And, but I'm so interested in what you all are doing at the Haltere Group. And I was just wondering, is there any way, I have this Roth IRA or I have this savings account. And listen, Monique, neither Dennis nor I are, have our Series 7 brokers, right? We're not licensed financial advisors. So I don't want to give out any financial advice. That's for our partner Ennis to do. And we send our investors to him. But what I will say is that there are so many creative ways that you are able to leverage the assets that you have, the liquidity that you have, in order to diversify your portfolio and invest in companies like the Haltere Group. It just comes down to education and awareness. And so, we just implore people to look at all of their options. A lot of times, Monique, I don't care what it is. It could be a national bank, a checkings or savings account. And one thing that they say about our community, Monique, they say, and I'm just going to keep it real, they say Black folks don't read, right? Because think about it. How many of us that opened up a Bank of America account or a Wells Fargo has looked at that 50-page contract, right? How many of us have done it? And to be honest, most have not. And that's not just, Black folks. That's any ethnic group. But the reason I bring that up is because what Haltere Group is able to do so well is we are going to read. We are going to do the due diligence. We are going to kick the tires. And we've been there, done that. We have decades of experience in all of these applicable areas that make us successful. And what we do is we package that, we simplify it, and we educate people so that they know. So going back to your original question, which is some examples and some success stories. We've had investors that did not realize that they could roll over their 401ks. We had investors that didn't understand that they can take equity out of their homes, equity that's appreciated in their primary residences. They're able to take equity out of these residences and invest it into companies like Haltere, right? And these are the sorts of educations that we're facilitating for people that's really changing their lives when it comes to building wealth through real estate.
But it also, Mikael, just to put a bow on it in terms of your explanation, outstanding job, by the way, that education also, Monique, extends to how to properly invest via an LLC, via a trust, via an S Corp, via a C Corp. We're trying to educate and put in place templates to where these investors have resources like a company called Executive on the Go that's doing phenomenal business that can advise these investors on how to create the LLC, the S Corp, the C Corp, trust attorneys. So that way, upon the act of death, their assets are protected for their families who are still here. So there's so many things that we're doing to try to really get the next generation of Blacks in a stronger position, and that starts and stops.
Mm-hmm. Love that. And so we spoke about, just dispelling these myths, and I want to get into the advantages that you all have in real estate at the Haltere Group. So as a Black owned and operated entity, what do you feel like are the unique perspectives and insights that you all have been able to bring to the real estate industry?
Oh, that's easy. It's showing the community that there's so much more than just buying a house, a condo, or a townhome, right? Our entrance level for real estate is just that. I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to buy a condo, I'm going to be a townhome. But other ethnicities, their entry level is, nope, I'm buying a fourplex, I'm buying a 6-unit, I'm buying a 20-unit. That's where we have to get out of. Yes, look, however you make your money is how you make your money. I'm never going to knock anyone on the good, the bad, the indifferent, because people are making money in flips and fixes. They're making their money on, buying multiple single families. But I always preach to my investors and my clients, buy the house. The house that you live in is an asset. That's an asset because every month you as an individual are making the payment to the bank. Once you start going into other single family homes that tenants live in, I view those as a liability because when that tenant is not living in that property, who pays the mortgage? You do, right? Well, there's a much easier way to invest your dollars. And I think to answer your question is, we're trying to get people to learn, get into the commercial space. Because now once you have multiple units, multiple doors, multiple people paying your rent, if you have 2 or 3 apartments that are vacant, so what? You're still generating a premium on those occupied apartments to pay the mortgage payment to where you're not dipping into your pockets to pay the difference. That's your true asset. And I think that's where our education is showing people on what to do and what not to do is showing true and through on how to invest properly.
And another thing I'd like to add to that, Monique, is really leaning into the method of syndication, right? I think that's something that's unique about our firm that really differentiates us, and also growing up, living the Black experience. Myself nor any of my partners grew up with a silver spoon in our mouths, right? And I say that because we've all individually outside of Haltere Group reached an immense amount of success and achievement in our life. But a lot of that was through grit, determination, and hard work. And because of that, we understand what it means to galvanize our network. We understand what it means to get creative when trying to reach that next rung of success, right? And when you look at some of our competitors out there, we talk about it all the time, these companies start off with seed capital, right? Well, Haltere was built on friends and family and true syndication. And what we're doing, Monique, is we're showing the community, as we've been talking about, how to really work together, not just in the ways that we're used to. When someone passes away and you don't have money, in the community to bury that person, what happens? You get a GoFundMe account, right? Or you do a car wash. We've all seen it. That's syndication. You're bringing the community together, to get the funds together to send this person off with a nice homegoing ceremony. Well, we want to leverage that same concept that we've been doing for many, many years in our community to actually build wealth. And so we're teaching folks how to syndicate in a different way. And it's been wildly successful.
And, syndication as a definition for those who are listening, it's just a creative way, a fancy word of saying investment group. That's all it is, right? When you look at your sports franchises, when you look at your telecommunication companies, when you hear about the merger between Verizon and T-Mobile, well, what is that? It's just Verizon putting in capital, T-Mobile putting in capital, and buying into something larger. So it's just an investment vehicle for a collection of people putting in capital into one idea that is invested, that should hopefully raise money or make money.
Got it. Love that. And so we spoke about the advantages of your perspective being Black owned in the real estate industry. So now I want to follow up with that too, because this is the Black to Business podcast and our audience is primarily Black entrepreneurs. And with that, oftentimes there are still people who feel that there are no advantages of focusing on the Black business owner, the Black community, or they should hide their faces. So for you all, what has been, would you say, to that person, but then also the advantages of being a Black owned business, primarily your customers are Black?
Well, I would start off by saying that it could not be further from the truth that there's no merit to, focusing on the Black dollar. I mean, I think it's been widely covered that, Black folks, when it comes to capitalism, and especially in this country, the Black dollar is large, it's immense, but it's also very impactful. I'll take it to a current event, for example, and this might be funny for some of the listeners out there. I think it's hilarious. Recently, was the Super Bowl, right? And everybody was talking about all the different highlights, right? The whole Taylor Swift thing, and the Usher performance, which was absolutely amazing. Shout out to my frat brothers from Kappa Alpha Psi that were on the stage doing their thing. And it's really funny because Beyonce, two things happened, Monique. Two things happened during the Super Bowl. Kanye West took out a commercial during the Super Bowl. It was a 30-second commercial, and he was selling some of his new items, right? He sold some new Yeezy apparel, some of his clothing brand. Everything he sold was $20, just $20. I think it came out that within like 3 to 4 hours, Kanye West's little campaign that he ran during the Super Bowl galvanized $20 million of buying, right? In just 4 hours time. And we know, I'm sure that the majority of that is, were Black dollars that went into that. Powerful. The second thing that happened during the Super Bowl, Monique, is that Beyonce announced she had a commercial with Verizon that was, I think, one of the coolest commercials of the Super Bowl this year. But she also announced and started teasing her next album, which is going to be a country album, right? A country album. And what ended up happening is that now you have millions and millions of folks in the beehive, as they call it, that are calling for Beyonce's country music. She dropped two country singles, to be played across airwaves on these historically and traditionally, country stations. And some of these country stations, Monique, I'm not sure if you've seen any of this stuff, but some of these stations are like, we don't play Beyonce music. We don't, have you seen that? Right. They said, it's nothing against Beyonce. She makes wonderful music, but we're a country station. Well, what ended up happening was so many people, majority from the Black community, came out and said, listen, it doesn't matter that you're traditionally country station. Beyonce, who's one of our most iconic artists of all time, not just Black artists, but one of the most iconic artists, she just dropped these country songs, and we want to hear them on your station, on your radio station. And guess what happened? In less than 24 hours, all of these stations that said they were not going to play Beyonce's music reneged on their words. They retracted, they tucked their tails, and they're now playing Beyonce's new country songs. I say all that to say when you talk about the Black dollar, when you talk about the Black voice, when you just talk about Black impact in general, the possibilities are endless. So when we hear people talk about, it's not a good business decision to lean into the Black dollar or to focus on Black activities, it's laughable to us because we know that's not the truth.
I agree. Now let's get into some of those people who are listening. They're like, you both have me fired up. I know it's possible. I know I can do it. And so if I'm an aspiring real estate investor, what are some of the key considerations that I should make when it comes to evaluating potential investment opportunities?
first, work with an expert.
Mm-hmm.
First, work with an expert, right? When you have a legal issue, who are you contacting? A lawyer. When you have a health matter, 9 out of 10 times you're going to see a doctor, right? You have a financial matter, you're going to see a CPA. I can't tell you how many people in real estate go against that methodology and go to talk to someone who knows absolutely nothing about what they're talking about, or they're residential and don't do commercial, or they're commercial and they don't do land. Go seek out an expert. If you want to buy a house, speak to a seasoned residential broker who is tried and true within their market space or commercial. That's first and foremost. And I think secondarily is get in the game, right? So many people are asking that common question of when is a good time to get into the market space? Now. Every day is a good time to get into the market space. Good interest rate or high interest rate, low interest rate, it's a good time to get into the space, because if you're not in the space, someone else is making money on your dollar. And that person typically is those FDIC banks. Get in the game, right? What does a bank do? The bank takes all of our deposits, and then our deposits are invested elsewhere. The elsewhere, 9 out of 10 times, are not inside the Black community, right? Why don't we just take our deposit dollars and invest those inside of the Black and brown communities? So first and foremost, my answer would be is seek out an expert. And second would be get off the couch and get into the game.
Love that. And so I love that you said first, seek out an expert. And I want to talk about the importance of due diligence and some insights into you all's process. So when it comes to, because I think it's important for people to understand that, of course, this is important. But for you all, what is some of the due diligence process and the factors that influence your investment decisions?
Great question. So typically we are looking at 50 units, 50 apartment units or greater within the United States. We like to identify apartment buildings within Class B and Class C buildings. And for those who are questioning what does that mean, let's break it down to academics. A are your high-end properties, and F are obviously your worst of the worst. Like we typically like to identify Class B and Class C. Those are your working class properties, those who might not have the means to buy a piece of property, but those who want a nice place to live, to call home. We like to identify properties that are day one of closing the escrow, day one of ownership, are cash flowing to an amount that will allow for us to pay our investors a minimum of 6%. And when we go down the question of due diligence, we are literally picking that property up, turning it upside down, and investigating anything and everything. We are looking at last 3 years of historical data, your tax rolls. We are looking at your rent roll. How many apartments are there? How many occupants reside in each apartment? How long have they been inside of the apartment? Where do they work? What can they pay? What is the market rates within a 1 to 2 mile radius? What are the utility bills? How much are they paying per month, per quarter, per year? What are the legalities? Are there Section 8? Are there not Section 8? We are literally doing a deep dive. So we become the resident expert for each individual asset that we acquire. So we can make sure that when our investors cut that check, that their check that they're cutting to us is going into a safe building that will allow for them to see a return on their investment.
Love that. And I love all of that because it also makes me think about when we talked about earlier, like you all are really big on education and really big on, like you mentioned, due diligence. And so for someone who's listening, can you talk a little bit about your support process throughout this investment life cycle? So from initial acquisition to ongoing asset management, can you talk about how do you all support people throughout this process?
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, we hold their hands. We hold their hands. We make them feel comfortable and we invite them into the process. As I mentioned earlier, we have full transparency across the platform. We want for their advisors, we want for their friends and families to ask questions. If they want to see the due diligence that I just referenced, it is readily available to them. So from identifying the property to raising the capital, to closing the escrow, and then to managing the asset, which is a very important piece to the puzzle, is proper management. We allow for our investors to be a part of every step of the process, and we are educating these investors because we want the greatest gift for us is for our investors to copy us, right? I say Black people are the most copied, but the most disrespected, right? We want for Haltere to be copied by the masses, because when you copy us, it means there's more dollars in the space to be deployed to buy more real estate. So now let's say, Monique, you are an investor. Let's say you put in dollars with Haltere. Let's say you now understand the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flow of the process, and you feel comfortable. You know what you have, Monique? A network. That network is not available to Haltere. But if you now can educate your network, and your network trusts you, and your network puts in dollars, you now might call Haltere and say, hey, Dennis, hey, Mikael, I have 200,000, 100,000, 50,000. Might Haltere match me dollar for dollar? What have we just done? We inherently just created, Monique, a mini syndication. Right? So we now taught you as that singular investor to penetrate your family, your friends, your colleagues, and that we become partners as an entity to go buy more real estate. We want you to copy us, right? So we want to bring you in close so you can understand, so we all can win together.
Loved that. Well, I tell you, this has been an amazing conversation, and I know you all have some pretty cool things going on. So let's talk about what you all are currently working on and some of the upcoming things that you have coming out.
I'm going to pass that to my partner, our superstar, Mikael. He loves to boast. As you can see, I'm now boasting about capital.
We love it.
We call him Photograph P within the Haltere range. So go ahead and continue your boasting about KSI and what we are doing at Haltere, because it is unique. It is strap on your seatbelt. We're growing, and I would love for my partner to really excite the base.
Oh yeah. Dennis knows I love to absolutely boast, and it's more so just pride. It's just pride because we put a lot of work day in, day out on this company and within our community, and most of our labor are really starting to harvest. So one thing I'll start off with that's near and dear to my heart, it's our HBCU housing initiative. So Haltere Group is one of the only investment companies that's focused on overcoming the student housing crisis that's plaguing our HBCUs nationwide. We have started off with 5 acres of land that we purchased and acquired in Tuskegee, Alabama, that we are developing for Tuskegee University. We have successfully passed phase 1 and phase 2 of the development activities. So we've done all of our environmentals and our soil studies, and we are now swimming through phase 3 and 4, which are the architectural designs and concepts, before we will be, God willing, breaking ground either later this year or the beginning of 2025. This, Monique, as you might know, is absolutely, absolutely historic and unique because there are over 105 HBCUs across the nation. And out of these HBCUs, the gross majority are undergoing a crisis. This is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity that is just being overlooked because these are historically Black colleges and universities. Well, they are not being overlooked anymore. Haltere has also just identified and is currently negotiating 42 acres of land. That's 42 acres that we are on the goal line of acquiring for another HBCU, and I'll keep the name of this HBCU quiet. We got to keep your audience coming back for more.
Okay, okay. I was gonna say, give us the first tips. But I get it.
All I'll say is it is located in Texas, and we are extremely excited about that.
Yes.
Other than that, as Dennis mentioned, we are galvanizing Greek organizations nationwide. Coming up, we are doing economic talks in San Jose and Seattle for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I, as a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, have been in deep talks with my fraternity in order to host these special economic summits. As you know, Monique, when you talk about the talented 10th, right, in our community, a lot of our individuals in the Divine Nine and the Greek diaspora have been majorly impactful to trailblaze in different ways. And so Haltere Group is strategically partnering and working with these communities. We are also doing a lot of work with NARAB. NARAB is one of the largest national consortiums of Black realtors in the country. So we have a lot of big things coming up with NARAB. And then last but not least, I want to bring attention to the How with Haltere podcast again, because you as a podcaster, and we are so impressed and grateful to be on the Black to Business podcast. This platform that you've created is absolutely amazing. We're so glad to be a part of it, and we must at some point host you on ours as well. Let's do a crossover episode.
Okay.
Because we have just filmed last week a podcast episode with a Grammy nominated artist. Coming up in a few weeks, we have a nationally recognized actor and comedian who is a icon, especially in the Black space, but just in the comedic realm in general. A huge name is going to be sitting on our podcast, and we are taking this thing to the next level. So strap on your seatbelts. Black to Business. We're running it up.
Yes. Yes. Okay, Dennis, I get why you wanted Mikael to say, because he got me hyped over here. And I love it. All the amazing work that you all are doing. Such impactful legacy building. So I'm so glad that you both are on the Black to Business podcast and just sharing the work that you all are doing. I think it's important for people to see the people who are doing the work, but then also to know that it's possible for them as well. So Dennis, when you talk about like copying what you all are doing, I think it's really important for us to have these conversations about passing the baton, sharing information, because that's the way we build. So I love everything that you all are doing. I'm so proud, and congratulations, because those are big deal things.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely.
You're welcome. So people are hyped. Mikael just gave us the put on our seatbelts, and we're on it. So they're looking, a listener is thinking, okay, how can I work with the Haltere Group to achieve my real estate investment goals? So can you talk about some of the ways that people can get involved or work with you all, or some of the resources that you have for them?
Absolutely. Listen, if you're out there listening, everybody that's listening to this has an email. Go ahead and shoot an email to investors@halteregroup.com. That's investors, plural, at halteregroup.com. We have a team that's managing this email 24/7. You could ask us any question. You could put in the subject line how to get involved. I want to learn more, anything you want. So that's the first way. Another way is to follow us on social media. We've realized that in 2024, Monique, especially in our community, social media is such a powerful tool that, if leveraged appropriately, allows you to connect with people in an impactful way all over the world. And so Haltere Group has a burgeoning presence on all the platforms. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or X, however you want to say it. We're on YouTube, literally any platform that meets your fancy. All you have to do is go to the search box and type in Haltere Group, and we will pop up, and there will be a way to contact us. Shoot us a DM. We are happy to speak to you all about any and everything, and just happy to educate the community as we continue to proliferate a mission of generational wealth through real estate.
The dog is saying amen.
And my dog just said amen.
Yes. You say amen. I love it. Well, this has been phenomenal. And I want to end it off with, for both of you, you spoke about in the beginning your experience and what led you to where you are today. What would you say has been the greatest risk that you've taken?
Wow. The greatest risk that I've taken is leaving corporate America, leaving a guaranteed check, leaving the guaranteed insurance, and betting on myself. Mm-hmm. I think if more people bet on themselves, I think the success of winning would be higher. And I think your audience, there's so many people who are probably driving in their car or sitting at home who are in that dead-end job or hate going to work every single day, who have a passion, whether it's real estate or hiking or painting or whatever it might be, that is just held back because of fear. And I had to face my fears. And that fear was just betting on myself and taking the leap of faith. 27 plus years later, 300 plus transactions closed, $3 billion in closed transactions. I've been able to provide a very nice lifestyle for myself and for my family. And I think that if I had not bet on myself, I would have been at a dead-end corporate job, not happy, and kicking myself for not taking that leap of faith. So the biggest risk was taking the leap of faith and doing my passion. And my passion is education and growing wealth.
Love that.
No, that was extremely eloquently said. I mean, to be honest, Dennis, I can't say it any better. I completely agree. And I'll just say, in my 35 years on this earth, what I've realized, Monique, and to all the listeners out there, is that fortune tends to favor the well-prepared. A lot of times we get in our own way out of fear, as Dennis alluded to. And there's nobody can hold you back more than you can hold yourself back, right? Mm-hmm. It takes, even if you have hesitation in changing things, people have a myriad of responsibilities and things that they have to be accountable to. Maybe you have children, maybe you have a significant other, maybe you have to keep that job, maybe you have to, stay where you're living. Maybe you can't take the same leap of faith that Dennis took or that I've taken or that others take. But you start off by leaning into what you're passionate about, educating yourself. It all goes back to education. One of the best things that I ever did to get to my level of success was self-educate. These days, there is no excuse to not learn a new craft. There's no excuse to not start a new business. It doesn't have to be on a big stage, right, Monique? If you want to start a restaurant, but you don't have the capital or the resources to do so because, you have to work a full-time job and you're a single mother or a single father with multiple children or whatever your situation is, we'll start small. There are people on social media that cook out of their little kitchen and their little stovetop and make hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, right? Start small. Start by, it's the old lemonade stand concept. And then it all goes back to what my partner Dennis said so eloquently, is believe in yourself, right? Believe in yourself, because in my opinion, the difference between those who make it and those who don't, there's two things. The first is those that make it have a radical, unmitigated, and unapologetic belief in self. And the second thing that differentiates those that make it from those that don't is the ability to persevere and keep going, even in the most perilous and bleak times. Keep going, because oftentimes, even though you've tried to go through 20 locked doors, Monique, it's the 21st door that's going to open up to your destiny. So keep going. Haltere Group is here to help y'all turn your dreams into a reality.
Yes, drops the mic. I love it. I love it. That was a speech within itself. And my final question to you both is, what does it mean to you to be Black in business?
What it means to me, I'll lead this one off so my partner Dennis can take us home. What it means to me to be Black in business is honestly legacy. When I think of being an entrepreneur, when I think of being a partner at the Haltere Group, when I think of the empire that I'm able to build alongside my partners, I think of legacy. My wife, as we speak, just so happens to be pregnant with our first child. And
congratulations.
Thank you so much. And let me tell you, that little baby is not here yet. But already, every breath I take, every time I open my eyes in the morning, it's all about them. It's all about them. And so what I feel being Black in business, I feel an immense amount of pride for the legacy that I'm creating for my child and future children and the impact that I'm leading on generations to come.
That's powerful.
No boundaries.
No boundaries. Love it.
None. Our ancestors came through and went through so much for us to be here today to do what we are doing, and the abilities to accomplish so much that they were unable to accomplish. No boundaries. There is nothing that I, as a Black man in 2024, cannot do. There is no limits that I and my partners will take Haltere to become one of the best in the space, the most successful in the space. And with the help of you, Monique, and others sharing the knowledge, we together as a collective will win. There's no boundaries.
I just want to thank you both. This has been, I've talked to a lot of people, and this is to be one of my top favorite conversations. So powerful, like everything that you all have said, the work that you're doing, but the strong sense of pride in the work that you do. It's phenomenal. So I want to thank you both for all that you do and all that you've done today, given to my audience, and keep pushing the culture forward. And thank you so much for being on the Black to Business podcast.
Thank you so much for having us. You're doing an amazing job, and we're happy to come back anytime. This was really special.
Yes.
And we need to have you come to Los Angeles and be on our podcast. So we'll definitely reach out.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you all. Thank you for the invitation.
I have to say that this has been one of my favorite conversations to date. The passion and the expertise that Dennis and Mikael brought to the table were truly inspiring. And you can genuinely feel the love and the care that they have for what they do. So one of the things that really stood out to me was how Dennis really broke down the intricacies of how investors are getting paid, because it's so important for us to understand how our money works for us. And Dennis covered all of those objections that you might have with some clarity and insight. And what I appreciate most about our guests today is their commitment to not only doing business, but also educating along the way. They truly exemplify the power of community and the impact that we can make when we work together to build wealth. And the tag team dynamic of this conversation was nothing short of powerful. I want you to remember that the power you hold as an entrepreneur is so important, especially as a Black entrepreneur. The journey to building your wealth may have its challenges, of course, but with knowledge, determination, and community support, anything is possible. I thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the Black to Business family. And be sure to visit blacktobusiness.com/188 to learn more about our guests and their businesses. I will see you back here next week, same time, same place. But until then, keep pushing the culture forward and keep building.